What's up, everybody? It's Spencer Alessi, and this is the Esports Narrative. What's up, guys? This is episode 26 of the Esports Narrative, and joining me tonight is two guests, Peter Lamb, a.k.a. Xenosking, and Adam Baugh, a.k.a. Adam_Baugh on Twitter. What's up, guys? How's it going?
Great. How you doing?
Good, awesome. So before we get started, a little background on these guys. Peter is both of these guys are previous founders of Esports, Collegiate Esports associations, and former presidents of those organizations. Peter was the former president and founder of RIT Esports up in Western New York here. Adam is the co-founder and former president of Rutgers Esports. Both of them host the Fog of War show or podcast, esports talk show, I guess. And I was just on that recently. Adam is the Team TESPA East Regional Coordinator. He's a journalist for Esports Haven. And both these guys are super awesome. They do a really awesome esports talk show. Check it out at Fog of War on Twitch. And we'll make sure we link everything in the show notes. But Adam, Peter, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me tonight. I am super excited to talk to you guys again.
Thank you, man. I'm really excited to be on the show as well. I thought that a lot of the stuff that I listened to from you has been really good work.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks.
for sure. Thanks for having us, dude.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Peter. So first, I just want to hear from you guys what your origin story is. And Peter, tell us a little bit, from the early ages of your childhood, like what got you into video games and esports? How did you find this wonderful world?
Oh, wow. So, yeah, I guess it's kind of a long story, but I'll try to keep it short. My first video game system or console was actually a Sega Genesis, and I got that when I was 2 years old. So I've been gaming since I was an infant, pretty much. From there, I was a console gamer for a very long time up until, I guess, we finally got DSL and, internet started getting better. I started playing a bit more computer games. And, from there, I guess my first step into a competitive video game was Counter-Strike 1.6 when it first came out because my family was super into it. So, I did get into it as well, along with StarCraft Brood War. So those were our two main competitive games that we played. And I think in 2007, it was about 2007, that's when I first got introduced into Dota 1. And then I played that until Han, then Dota 2. And from there, that's when the International started in 2011. And that's kind of when I figured out that there was an actual competitive scene, that people played this for real money and people became professionals. And I started discovering, stuff about the Counter-Strike scene where they also did that too. And it was just a whole new world to me. And ever since then, because I have a very competitive nature, I just fell in love with esports, alongside just video games and in general that I've always had a love for my entire life.
Awesome. And Adam, what about you? Like, what's the first game console you had, and how did you find video games and come to love all things? I know we talked about before fighting games and Counter-Strike and Overwatch and Dota on your show, The Fog of War. Well, how did you get into the video game scene?
Sure. So growing up, one of my mom's family, or one of her friends, I should say. So a family friend, she babysat me for a couple of days. And while I was there, she actually let me play her son's original PlayStation. So I played, I believe it was the original Toy Story. I'm not sure if it was like Toy Story 1 and 2, but I'm pretty sure it was Toy Story Run on the PlayStation 1. That was my first video game experience. And looking back, I know I definitely enjoyed it. Probably didn't quite understand what was going on. I don't even think I learned how to read at that time yet. So it was kind of just, around the game world and just figuring things out on your own. But from there, I loved it. And ever since then, I tried my best to play games whenever I could. Got into StarCraft 2 after a friend introduced it to me. You hear the kind of legends of StarCraft before and the pro scene that's there. So naturally, my instinct was like, wow, you're such a nerd for playing StarCraft 2. This was during the beta, right, in like 2010. But eventually, I was watching him playing, like, wow, this game looks really good. Started playing with him and got really into the game there, and I liked the game so much and wanted to play it so badly that I ended up watching the original IGN Pro League because I couldn't play the game. That was like my way of kind of filling the void, and that's how I got into the pro scene there. So there's a whole bunch of things, really. Even growing up, I remember, and I think Peter mentioned this too, like in our talks, that I actually watched the championship game series, the CGS, on People TV way back when. So I've experienced a lot of competitive games.
Yeah, that's awesome. And now, Peter, what was Adam talked a little about kind of the turning point, I like to say, of when you kind of realized that this esports thing could be huge. What about you, Peter? Like, when was the point where you realized that this esports thing was going to be huge, or it could be a career, or potentially be a career for you?
So the thought never really, I guess, it didn't really like cross my mind at this very one exact point, right? And I was like, oh my God, this could be like the next best thing ever. But I feel like the one true point where it kind of sparked that flame, just to get us started, was at the very beginning of Dota 2's, I guess, introduction into this world, right, where they announced the international. And during this time, Dota 1 tournaments were still happening, and we were very into that game. So there was this tournament called, I think it was called the Defense. It was a tournament done by Join Dota, and it was casted by Toby-Wan Kenobi. If you've never heard of him before, you should definitely look him up. He's like the most hype caster ever. He's really, really great.
It's a bold claim, my friend. It's a bold claim.
He's a hype caster in Dota 2. The most hype caster in Dota 2.
He's got the best name.
He has a great voice for it.
He's got the best name, let's be honest.
He does. And I think watching him cast that game, it was like MYM versus, and I don't even know who the opponent was. I forgot, because I know MYM. I just started discovering pro teams, and I was like, oh, they're pretty legendary. And it was against this other team who was really, really good as well. And it was like, I think it was 100-something minute match. It was a very long match, but then there was just so much going on. And I think it was, if you look into the archives of Dota 1 and like the best casted games in the history, that game is going to be one of them, because I did stumble onto it again a couple of years later as one of the best casted games in Dota history. So I was lucky enough to find that game and watch it the whole way through, and that's kind of what really pulled me in. I was like, wow, this is a legit thing. It's like sports, but just for video games, and seeing people play at a very high level really intrigued me, and it kind of sparked this flame in me that really made me want to get better at the game, learn the game more, and figure out more about this weird world that I've never seen before, but was very like intrigued about.
Yeah. Now, fast forwarding a little bit to your time as president of Esports Associations, I'm curious to get your take on what it was like starting an Esports Association in college. And Peter, Adam, from both of you, I'm curious, was there pushback, from the colleges? Did they think like, oh, this esports thing, you want to play video games, and you want scholarships to play video games? Like, what was it like starting that out, and when were the years if starting out? Like, what was that like?
So yeah, there was. I feel like there's always going to be some pushback. Especially when it comes to school administrators who don't really know what esports is, or have never even heard of it before, and they have that, I guess, that stereotypical like image of video games in their heads, right? It's kind of like a pastime. It's just something people do for fun. It's nothing super serious, and so when you tell people, especially the important people that needs to hear this, about how you want to start up a organization, or you want to start up a program with scholarships and going to competitions and flying the students and stuff like that, it just sounds a bit crazy to them at first, and you really got to kind of ease them in. So yeah, there definitely was some pushback, but once they learned more about our world and how incredible it was, they started to, I guess, take it in a little bit more, and they started becoming more comfortable with the idea of having this. But it takes a long time, and it took a lot of meetings, and education, I feel like, is the number one thing that needed to happen, or it needs to happen still, is just education, and just to make sure that kids aren't going to be playing games like 24 hours a day and not going to like, go outside or hang out with their friends or even fail school. Of course, they're at a school, they're at a college, and the main point, of being there is to get a degree, right, and get an education. So we want to emphasize, and every single president I've met wants to emphasize that, education always comes first. But this is just another extracurricular like sports that people, that students can do if they're not into sports. It just gives them another pathway, another option for them to express themselves and really do something other than just schoolwork all day. So I think it's a really great thing.
Yeah. What about you, Peter? Like, what from your experience, how has it been for you? Founding and being president of Rutgers.
So I don't think I ever experienced pushback. Like when I first proposed the idea, obviously I had to like tell them why I was forming it, but it was never like this battle to get the club formed. There was other battles that were involved in terms of trying to get certain things off the ground, like corporate partnerships and, partnering with TESPA and getting completely official recognition, as in often when you register new clubs, and I'm not sure if Peter had to go through this, but usually when you first make a new club, you're on probationary status first, and then after X amount of time, then you get full-fledged, fully recognized by the university. And that took a while for us, much longer than we would have liked. So that was one of our challenges. Another challenge was joining TESPA. TESPA has a charter that technically someone has to sign in order to get all the benefits of TESPA. And the unfortunate thing was, as students at Rutgers, we are not allowed to sign contracts on behalf of the university, naturally.
Sure.
So we had to get that approved by the school, and that took much, much longer than we ever anticipated. I think it was something like 3 semesters or something like that.
Wow.
And that was painful. It was very, very painful for us. But in terms of the administration, like I said, it was never hard for us to get started and to be created. The challenge becomes when you want more support, when you want to get more things, right? So if you want to have more funding for your events and tournaments, when you want to start doing what you see what other universities are doing, like Robert Morris University or University of California, Irvine, right? So you want esports scholarships, you want a LAN center, you want more support and staff for your players, things like that. Once you get to that point, that's when it gets much, much more difficult.
Yeah.
And as Peter said, some people, kind of are stuck in that mindset, the old mindset, the stereotypical feeling of, oh, they're just people in their basements, fat, don't get out that much, blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
But at the same time, there are others who are very, very open and receptive to it. And I was fortunate enough to talk to a number of different administrators at Rutgers who were very, very open to learning and recognizing this new kind of movement and the new cultural phenomena that is esports and gaming. That's really only kind of coming to the surface now, even though it's kind of been in their faces for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just want to add, I feel like Adam and I are like very lucky to have schools that were so supportive. I did talk about pushback, and it was mainly, and I should have been a bit more clear about this, but it was because we already had a gaming club. So technically an esports club would just be another gaming club, right? So it wouldn't make a lot of sense. And so the weird part for us is that we had to find a way in order to create a club outside of the usual, I guess, the club center or the system that you had to be in for a regular club. But besides that, yeah, because I went to a tech school, and I would say, and the statistic I remember was like 90% of our students are gamers. It was very like encouraging, for us to start up this program. It was just trying to find a place for it to fit, and I feel like sometimes that's the issue, not not people not believing in it, but still, education was a pretty big part of it.
Now,
yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Spencer.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to add something very quick. It's just that for most people, you have to remember that most universities in the country, whether they like to admit it or not, are mostly losing money in one way or another, whether it be because they're spending too much money in one area or they're not quite getting as many students, right? They always want to engage their students more. They always want to attract more students to the school, and gaming and esports is a perfect way to do that. And it's just like what Peter said, it's a matter of education. And once you start showing them the numbers, once you start showing them the facts of where gaming and esports are right now, they quickly begin to realize what exactly is going on and what the scene is like.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because most colleges are not for profit or whatever the word is for it. So that's a good point. Now, flipping the tables a little bit more on you guys, how do you think being president of those associations and just starting those and running those for a bit, how do you think that's prepared you, going forward in your careers and what you guys want to accomplish in esports?
You're asking like how it's prepared me for the job I have now and for the future, correct?
Yeah.
Sure. So even in general, a lot of the work that you do in collegiate esports organizations is very, very practical, and it teaches you a lot of life skills. One thing that I really like to compare it to is you're essentially running a startup, like a small business startup, except that you're all college students, right? That's the kind of commitment and work that kind of goes into it, right? Because you have to reach out to different corporate partners for funding. You have to increase your social media and your awareness and exposure of your product or service, right? So that more people get interested, and that helps you guys grow. You have to build a team of people who believe in what you're doing and fill your own weaknesses while also bolstering your strengths. You have to be able to make sure that everything is going smoothly, and you also have to make a lot of sacrifices, because let's face it, in those early years of any startup, right, it's not like you guys are making any payday or anything like that, or you're not going to see the benefits of your work or the rewards of your work that early in most cases. And the same thing can be applied to esports. I didn't get paid a dime. Most of my team doesn't get, or I should say all of my team doesn't get paid a dime for the work they put in for esports. It's all volunteer, and it's all for the love of the community. And the reward itself comes from that work of giving back to the community. That's something that is the entire reason why I founded Rutgers Esports, was to give back to the community that gave me so much. When I first went to Rutgers, like any college student, you're trying to find your place and figure it all out. And Rutgers, I should say the Rutgers StarCraft Club, to be specific, was that family, was that group that I found that I really loved, especially in high school. As much as I love my friends and I love them all to death, I still talk to them all a lot. I never really had a group of people to share my passion for esports with.
Yeah.
But I found that at Rutgers StarCraft, and that's part of why I wanted to found Rutgers Esports, so that we can continue to share that kind of camaraderie and that brotherhood, that community together, and just expand to more games and really give the community what I felt like it deserved, just what you saw at others.
Yeah.
As for it preparing me for other jobs, I mean, event logistics, even if they're esports events, that's a very, very important skill to have. That's something that I'm definitely learned a lot of. Social media growth. It's another thing that's really important to know in terms of growing your brand and just understanding how social media works, when to post, when not to post, how many times to post. Team management, teamwork. Whenever you join any sort of organization, right, like that, you're going to attain many, many different skills. It's not limited to just, I learned more about Counter-Strike, or, I learned more about League of Legends. You learn more about the entire people around you. You learn what they know, they learn what you know. It's all give and take. So in that sense, it definitely helped me out. I know if I didn't do all the work that I did at Rutgers Esports, I wouldn't have joined. I would have been able to get the job at Collegiate Entertainment for TESPA as the East Regional Coordinator. So of course, I'm very, very grateful for that. And in general, esports, Rutgers Esports, my work at Heaven Media, all of that has given me a lot of different experiences that I wouldn't have been able to have otherwise. Very, very blessed.
I got a lot of really good information from that for myself, and it's interesting hearing someone's experiences and what they've learned, because you can always pick something up from it. Peter, what about you? Like, what are some skills you learned from it, or what are some things that you picked up that's helped you moving forward in what you're doing?
I think so. Before I get into like a whole list of things I learned, because throughout this whole journey, like you certainly learn a lot. But I think the number one or two of the biggest things that you learn is one, to never be afraid of failure, because you will mess up a lot. You will fail a lot, but then
100% agree.
yeah, and you're gonna have to learn from that, and you got to pick yourself up. And just because you mess up, people will understand. I mean, you're a college kid, right? So you're juggling like college, you're juggling life, you're juggling like a whole organization. Like Adam said, it's like you're doing a startup, and it's a really hard thing to do. So that's the first thing, is just you always have to just learn from your mistakes and not be afraid of them. The second thing is, yeah, Adam said it too. Actually, just do it. Right? Don't be afraid to just do it. It just starts everything. That's how you start off. So if you feel like something's missing, then write up a plan, and you got to plan everything out and just do it. And then if it doesn't work out, just reiterate and then work and see what went right, what went wrong, fix it up, do it again. But yeah, and this is, I'm a business major, right? So when I was doing this whole thing and I was taking classes at the same time, the stuff that I was learning by myself and the stuff that I was learning from school went hand in hand. Project management, communication skills, leadership skills, just managing a team in general, managing and leadership are two different things, but they definitely, they work together. So a lot of the stuff that Adam said is very true, and it takes a lot of hard work and dedication, but the most rewarding thing I got out from it is just working with the most passionate people ever, because no one's getting paid. And everyone knows that it's a college organization. You're doing it just for the love of it. And the people who show up to do this with you because they want to, it's just like you're working with the hardest workers you'll ever meet, and it's a great feeling to find these type of people and kind of grow this organization from zero to something that's really, really amazing. And even though Adam and I have both graduated, we're still excited every single year, the start of the school year, to see what new freshman comes in, what new programs that we got in store, what new teams. We want to see them continue progressing, and I think that's just what they're going to do forever and ever, or at least we can hope, right? So yeah.
Right.
And a lot of the skills, it just translates to real life. Peter. Oh yeah, no, but I was saying, like, everything you learn will translate to real life.
Mm-hmm. I have to 100% agree with Peter in terms of a lot of the experiences that you get when you're in a collegiate gaming organization are things that you'd learn in class, except you're not going to that class, right? So right now I'm actually going to Rutgers as part of the Global Sports Business Master's program. I was fortunate enough to be in the program. But a lot of the people there, or even a lot of people who graduate with business degrees, and not to circle jerk myself or whatever, but I very much doubt a lot of the people in those clubs have any sort of experience on the scale of what you might see in an esports club, right? If you look at certain esports events across the country, collegiate esports events to be exact, like if you look at University of California, San Diego, they're running huge events that have over 20 corporate partners, I think, and like 2,000 attendees, right? What undergrad person who's just in the business club has that kind of experience of negotiating with different corporate partners and running a huge event like that, right? Or what business major might have that kind of experience of running what's essentially a startup? And that's not, again, to discredit so many aspiring businessmen in the nation. It's just trying to illustrate the kind of work and the kind of lessons that you learn on the fly, because most of these people aren't business students. They're kind of just learning it on their own and doing their own research that goes into these kind of esports organizations. And even people in my class, I have more experience than them, and they might have had business degrees or degrees more relevant to what exactly they're doing. And it's all because of the experiences that I had at Rutgers Esports and just sports as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, it's the age-old thing of experience trumps all. You know what I mean? You can read book after book after book, but if you've never picked up the hammer and, put the nail on the board, like, it's just not the same. What's
Sure.
I'm curious because the last few minutes have been really inspiring for me, and hearing your guys' passion clearly is really exciting. And I'm curious what drives you, Peter. When you think about your career and what you want to accomplish, what's one thing that just really is driving you, and where do you get your source of ambition from?
I I think the number one thing, as cheesy as it might sound, is to honestly just make people happy. When I was running events at my school, whether it be tournaments or tryouts or something, I always saw happy faces, and people were always excited to just see something of that caliber to be at that school. People, giving the opportunity to these students to kind of pursue their dreams in a way and play competitively for something that's very real, and they put their heart into it. Or just seeing their school like doing something other than sports, because I know a lot of people, fortunately or unfortunately, are not fans of sports, and so this just gives them something else to cheer on and have more, school spirit for, right? So I do a lot of this stuff, and I have passion for this because I know how it feels to want to see something awesome, to see something really cool, happen. And for the longest time, it just wasn't happening. And I know a lot of people were like, we always sit around like, oh, I wish this would happen. Oh, I hope this happens. And maybe, right? But then I was like, all right, let's take the first step then. Let's actually do this thing and make our dreams come true, as well as a lot of other students too. So that's my main drive, is just to make people happy.
What about you, Adam? What drives you? Where do you get your ambition from? Like, why are you going after the talk show or the esports talk show? Why are you guys doing some of these things?
Sure. I mean, like a lot of people, there's a number of different things. One of them is I just really love esports. I could talk, as you can tell from doing the podcast, I can talk about that stuff all day. Me and Peter kind of share that passion for just the scene and seeing it grow. But I think for me, the biggest thing is come down to what it's always been for me, and that's giving back to the community that gave me so much. Esports is, like I said, helped me achieve my own dreams and made me. Has changed my life in multiple times in so many different ways, and really showed me the possibilities that you can achieve in life. And even more than that, as Peter said, when you're running events and you look around and then you see so many people being so happy, people from all walks of different life, different religions, different races, gender differences, what have you. It's everyone. There's jocks, there's musicians, athletes, artists, musicians, whatever. They all come together just because they love gaming, and you see that smile. And I think you know what I mean by that smile. It's the look of euphoria because they're in a place where they feel accepted, where they feel loved. They can share that passion that they have for gaming and esports. And that's something that I want to continue to foster because it was so important to me, and I know it's so important to other people. I think it's pretty clear from everyone that life isn't all sunshine and rainbows, and especially when you're in college, things get really, really tough. You're in a very, very important era in your life, right, where you're still trying to figure things out, and people go through a lot of tough times, whether it be relationships, family, grades, career, even just trying to figure out what you're doing with your life. That stuff can be really, really challenging, and it shouldn't be underestimated. And just knowing that I can form a community and put on events that let people know that they can escape from that just a little bit, or even just have comfort in knowing that, hey, all that stuff is going wrong, or hey, all that stuff is bad, but it's okay because I have this family, I have these friends, people who love me and support me. And that's always been the most. Everything that I've done personally is and always has been. Will always be.
May I add on to that really quick?
Yeah, go for it.
I think one of the coolest things that Adam has touched upon that I've seen is the fact that you see all these type of people, right? Think about the stereotypical high school cliques. You got all these type of people. You got the jocks, the nerds, I guess the cool kids, the music kids, band kids, whatever. They when it comes to games, those things kind of don't exist. Everyone is just kind of like a gamer at that point. And I've met a lot of different type of people, and I'm like, initially you would look at them, you would never think that they were a gamer or a fan of esports. But then when it comes to esports and gaming, everybody is just kind of on the same roof, and those type of stereotypes or cliques or whatever, they just disappear. And it's so cool to see so many different types of people cheering for one thing. You know what I'm saying, Adam?
Oh yeah, I definitely have to agree with Peter. I remember I spoke to Red Eye at ESL One New York last year, and he kind of said something along the lines of, gaming is the only thing that he knows that literally transcends nearly every single boundary that we have, right? So you can play games with anyone on the planet by playing online. You even have to be next to someone to play games, so you can bond like that. Games, unlike traditional sports, even if you're, for whatever reason, you can't perform at the level that you'd want to at traditional sports, whether it be because of disabilities or sicknesses or whatever, that doesn't mean that you can't play games. There are plenty of amazing players who unfortunately do have disabilities, but they still, truck on and are very, very, very successful. And there are even age differences. There are plenty of people who might be a little bit older than what you might call the stereotypical gamer that do love it. And it's just like what Peter said, it's all different walks of life. It transcends all those boundaries, and it's unlike almost anything that I've ever seen. Sure, there are many things in the world, even traditional sports, movies, film, that do bring people together, and that's true. But there's nothing quite like how gaming does it, and it's something that you really have to see to believe. And even just thinking about it in general, you have so many different subcultures, but they're like cosplay, esports, game development, whatever. But it's still all gaming. It's still all gaming and esports, and that's the beautiful thing.
Yeah, the passion and excitement that I hear from you guys is really inspiring and motivating, and it just reminds me of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it's a perfect segue into me asking you guys, clearly you have a passion for this, and it sounds like you want to be doing this forever. But I'm curious to hear from you guys. Peter, we'll start with you. Are you into esports for life, and what do you want to do in esports? Like, what's your dream or your goal? Maybe it's not even in esports, but like, what's your dream or your goal going forward? What are you hoping to achieve, or what are you driving towards?
Esports for life, for sure. No doubt about it. I think I'm gonna definitely be in here forever. And I guess my main goal is definitely to help out the little guys. Because the pro scene right now, it's blooming. You got all these organizations, you got tournaments, they're starting to get salaries, healthcare benefits, and all that stuff like that. That's really great. But trying to, I guess, help out the little guys by introducing them into what, esports, or helping them grow, or like, say you have all these, and I met like 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds who are like, I want to become a pro someday, But at the moment, there's kind of really nothing out there. There's no training camps you can go to. The only thing that you can kind of do to improve yourself is watch YouTube videos, or just play just play the game itself. And I want to build like a support system for fans of esports who want this, I guess, scene or industry to be a bit more accessible in terms of, I guess, understanding the game that they're watching or playing, or maybe even getting better at the game, so they might have a shot at becoming pro themselves. It's either that, or it's actually definitely that, and event hosting. I love hosting and creating and organizing events, especially tournaments, from the planning stage and then the day of, that morning when you're like super, super tired. You wake up, it's like 7 a.m. in the morning, you go there and everything's pretty much all set up, it's dead quiet. People start rolling in, you start playing the music, and everything gets hype, and that's the moment that you see everything come together. That is the most rewarding thing ever. And then and right after that, the whole day progresses, crazy stuff happens, technical difficulties, crazy games, and then it ends, and everyone is just so relieved that it's over, but happy that they did it. And I don't know, just that rise and fall of emotions from just hosting a tournament, a live tournament where people go in there and cheering and playing, and all the passion is there in that room. And passion is my favorite word. It's really, really great to see, and something that you really just got to be there to see it and feel it for yourself.
What about you, Adam? What's your big goal? Like, what do you want to be doing? What are you trying to achieve in esports? And tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. I think that I'd love to have a career in esports, and that's certainly what I'm aspiring to. If I had to say what my dream job would be, it would be definitely working in esports for Blizzard Entertainment at some point. Technically, I do that right now, but I'd love to have a full-time position and, really join the Blizzard family there in Irvine. That being said, I think that even though that is what I want, even if I didn't get a career in esports for whatever reason, I'd never leave the community. I'd be in esports for life. I'd always try and help out in any sort of way possible in my spare time. Just because it's not my career doesn't mean that I'm giving it up forever. It's not just all or nothing for me. Esports will always be in my life, and because I truly love it. It's kind of going along with what Peter said. Passion is a word that's thrown around a lot, especially in our community, but it's really the proper word to describe how a lot of people feel about it, how how much people truly do love it. And in a lot of ways, you can call it a passion, but that really barely scratches the surface of how people truly feel about the game. I'd really like to continue to help out with Collegiate and really spread the lessons and the experiences that I had while doing Rutgers Esports and helping that grow. But at the same time, I'd also love to just grow the collegiate scene or just esports in general. I just want to help out, see the community grow so that more people can experience all the things that we love, just like how we did.
Now, Peter, what would be your advice for someone getting into esports? Let's say, passions are wonderful and having a love for the industry and esports and video games is great. How can people make careers out of it and actually make a living? And what would be your advice for someone who's just starting out that wants to do something but maybe doesn't have the esports experience yet, maybe has experience in other areas? What would be your advice for someone starting out?
All right, so this one advice, and I repeat it a lot, like I say it a lot of times, and I used to really not like this response at all because I used to ask this question from to a lot of people who are already very set or very big in the industry already, right? It's like, how do I get into this? I don't have any experience. I don't know what to do. And the number one answer that I always hear from anybody, and I'm pretty sure Adam and you would also agree, is just do it, right? But then, so there's another part to that though. You don't just do it. You do it with a plan. And that's the thing I always learned. I used to just do stuff randomly, and then sometimes I get results, sometimes I don't. But you can't just do stuff without a plan. If you want to do something, go ahead and do it. But make sure you have a plan. Make sure you have a backup plan. And make sure you know how to reiterate on those plans just in case something doesn't work out. And I feel like that's the most important thing. When it comes to, I guess, programming or just anything in general at the moment, that's something that's very trendy within the industry is what do they call it? Like kind of like agile development, where you take something and you kind of work on it a little bit and then you keep on adding on or improving as you go on. You don't just do one big plan at the beginning, right? Because you do one big plan at the beginning and something fails, well, you're like, okay, then I'm going to have to take 10 steps back and go all the way in the beginning to change this one thing up. But if you just go on step by step, little by little and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't and changing it up as you go, you'll be way more successful that way. So always go in with a plan and don't be afraid to just do it. Awesome.
That's really good advice. Adam, what about you?
I definitely have to kind of agree with what Peter said 100%. He definitely said a lot of good things there. But in the interest of giving you guys some sort of different advice, I'm just going to say what I always say at the end of the Fog of War Esports podcast. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, support your local scene. If you're in college, join your collegiate gaming organization, get involved as an officer and help out as much as possible. If you're someone without a scene or community in your local area, start one. Be that guy. The community does need leaders just like you. And sure, you could go to school for computer science or business or marketing, and yes, you can start applying those things to esports. Trust me, they're all looking for those kind of things. But I think the most important thing, as Peter said, is to just do things. And yes, you need a plan, but sometimes you might not know exactly what you want, and the perfect way to find out what exactly you might want to do is to get involved. So wherever you are, join a collegiate gaming organization, go to local tournaments, weeklies, monthlies, casuals, friendlies, wherever. And if you don't have that scene, be the one to start it. If you think that all these organizations popped out of nowhere, no, it was because of passionate leaders all across the nation, all across the world, who truly loved what they were doing and said that they wanted to start a scene and to support it because they loved it that much. Wednesday Night Fights, the premier local fighting game tournament in Southern California, that was started by Alex Baugh in Ross. Okay, that's how much he dedicated his time and how much he wanted to start something like that. And I think that Peter and I can also agree with this as well. Listen, if we can do things, if we can start things like the Fog of War Esports show and our collegiate gaming organizations, I see no reason. Like, trust us, if we can do it, so can you. And you have more than enough tools at your disposal, especially in the age that we live in. So just support or create.
Yeah, that's really good advice as well.
Sorry, may I add one more thing?
Go for it.
I know I do this a lot, but it's sparking so many ideas.
It's all good. Go for it.
To add on one more thing to Adam's thing, that when you go out to events and stuff like that, don't only just go out there and support your local community by just by being there, but volunteer. Be that dude that just goes around, be like, hey, do you need help? Do you need help? Like, always ask. A lot of the biggest esports guys that you know today, they most likely, I'm not gonna say all of them, but most likely most of them got their jobs through volunteering and just doing stuff like for free. And I feel like that's the best way to get to know people within the industry and get the experience, because there's always that weird thing of like, oh, we need 5 years of whatever experience. Well, if you have experience just volunteering, and there's a lot of volunteering opportunities out there for like or tournament organizing at your local scene, to really, really big conventions such as DreamHack. They also have applications for you to volunteer at. Just take every opportunity that you can to volunteer at any esports event, and it'll get you really far.
Yeah, and
right. I'm sorry, Spencer. You can go ahead.
I was going to say, don't expect things in return either. Like when you're volunteering your time, don't go in there with expectations that you're going to, get, all these rewards or these accolades. I mean, you're in there to provide value to the organization or the association that you're helping out, and really focus on that. Go ahead, Pete or Adam.
Yeah, 100% agree with you, Spencer. I think the way that it can be best summed up for what Peter's trying to say is just take advantage of every single opportunity that you have. So you do have those volunteering at those esports events, but another thing too is that you should never be afraid to ask for help. The worst thing that anyone can say is no. So if you're wondering how to get into a scene, or you want, let's say you're a commentator, you want some advice or anything, don't be afraid to ever reach out and just say, hey, do you have any tips? Or, hey, what do you think about this? Peter knows a lot about this too. He knows someone special way up high in the esports world. And, the people in esports are very rarely divas, especially in the fighting game community and the Smash Brothers communities from my experience. And they're always willing to talk to you. They're always very down to earth and willing to treat you like a human being, like someone that deserves respect and attention, because that's what you do deserve. So definitely don't be afraid of talking to people, just going up to people at events, just saying hi. I'm sure unless they just lost or they're in a bad mood, which is not always the case, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to talk. Just take advantage of every single opportunity that you have.
Yeah. And I'm actually going to throw it kind of back to you and play a devil's advocate role in some sense. And I think all of what you guys said is very, very good advice and all well and good. And on the other side of it, I think about my own career in tech and now doing this podcast. It's like, don't be afraid to look things up and like try and find answers for yourselves. There's nothing more rewarding than finding the answer or finding a solution to a problem for yourself. And I like to go to people with specific questions on things and not broad or generic, can you help me with X? I like going to people that have more experience than me or are smarter than me or more knowledgeable or have a bigger network than me with specific things and be like, hey, I have this situation here and this is what I'm doing. What would you think about this? And ask something really specific to get someone's help. And I find that you get a very good reception back from them, or more specific information that you're looking for than kind of a broad, generic, open-ended question. You know what I mean? I don't know what you guys think about that.
I definitely have to agree. Being more specific definitely helps. And even finding out things on your own is also very rewarding. That's kind of how I got started out too. I can't even tell you the amount of interviews I watched early on and when I was first getting into esports, from things like Cybersports Network, Team Liquid, Thorin did a lot of interviews, Esports Heaven when Richard Lewis was still there. That's how I learned a lot about the scene. And there's even like panels from different esports events and PAXs, and there's also TED Talks even. So the answers more often than not are out there. So never be afraid to look for them, just like Spencer said.
Yeah, were you going to say something, Peter, too?
Yeah. I just 100% agree. It's kind of like throwing this back at school. If you need help from a professor, don't just go up and ask for help, or don't go to the office hours and ask for help like for everything. You got to come there with a plan. You got to come there with a very specific question. Otherwise, they don't know how exactly to help you out. You got to pinpoint exactly what you need help with, right? So it'd be a lot better and more appreciated to these very busy people if you have a very specific question for them, that they'll be able to help you out instead of something really broad that you got to think about for a while. And when you approach these people, just note that they're also very, very busy or could be very busy. And if they're just not responsive, that's completely fine. That's you have to be okay with it, because I had to learn to be okay with it. And don't like bug them like every day. Like, oh, hey, you didn't respond to me. Hey, you didn't respond to me. Like if you message them or email them and they don't respond, wait like maybe 2 or 3 days and then do a follow-up email and be like, hey, I just want to follow up with blah 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 blah. And then try at least like maybe 2 more times. If they're really not responding, then I guess you're out of luck. But be patient, because these people are really, really busy.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. It's important to be persistent and try and really fight for what you want. But at the same time, Peter's right. These are people just like you and me, just like anyone else who have lives, who have their own things that they're going through, whether it be good or bad. So just always keep that in mind. Be respectful, be polite, and always remember that just because they're not responding to you doesn't mean they hate you. Doesn't mean that they're like trying to be mean or anything like that. It's just everyone's living their own lives just like you are.
Yeah. Now, the last thing I wanted to ask you guys about was the Fog of War esports show that you guys do. Tell me a little bit about the background story of why you guys started it, and maybe Peter, we'll start with you. Why you guys started it, and what is the premise of your show, and what are you hoping to achieve, or what value you're trying to bring to your audience in producing that show?
Definitely was the right choice starting off with Peter, because he's the one who started it, not me.
That was purely a guess, by the way. I had no idea.
All right. So Fog of War, yeah, that's a special thing. It's because there's a show, right, that was started like, I forgot even when. I think it was early 2005, 2006 or 7. One of those years. It was by DJ Wheat, my super idol, the man who I look up to a lot. He's been in esports for a very long time, since like 97. And he did a show called Live on 3. And you guys could still go back and look for the VODs, or even like there's audio recordings of the show. And it ran for 200 episodes. So it was about 5 or 6 years it ran for, and it was a great show. They talked about esports. They had a lot of great personalities on it. They had like very insightful discussions. It was fun. And after DJ Wee eventually ended the show, there was nothing like it. And I always tried looking for more esports podcasts or talk shows that were similar to the style, but I really couldn't find anything like this. So this is kind of like the thing we've been talking about this whole time, is just do it, right? I was like, all right, well, if there's nothing like this, then I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. And I want to start up the show, and I want to kind of share the experience and the feelings that I had watching this show with everybody else who never got to experience it, while the show was still on air. And so I started the show first by myself, and I started talking about esports and whatnot. But there's only so much you can talk about by yourself, and so I felt like I really did need a co-host, and DJ Wheat actually was the one who told me that too. He's like, yeah, it's really hard to do that. It's going to be a lot easier with the co-host. And I met Adam through a Collegiate Esports Facebook like group chat thing, and he seemed really, really nice, and I liked the way he did things a lot, and we talked a little bit. So I was like, hey, why not? If you're free, Adam, would you love to come on to my show and do this thing with me, become my co-host? And I know he did interviews and stuff like that in the past, so I thought it'd be great, just to have him onto the show too, because of this experience. And it became something so much more than what it started out as, and it's something that is still evolving, but it's become a lot more fun and a lot more insightful ever since Adam has come on, because we're able to have these back and forths, and we either agree with somebody or disagree with somebody. Our viewership number has increased, and we started talking to people. So we're getting that magic of Live on 3 onto the Fog of War slowly, and hopefully it grows into something much, much better than Live on 3, and hopefully we'll have a lot of people there to just watch the show, appreciate the discussion, and just have fun with us talking about esports and nerding out.
Yeah, that's awesome. What about you, Adam? Like, what are your thoughts and what you guys are trying to do? And also, how did you come up with the name Fog of War? I'm really curious to know how you guys kind of came about the name.
Okay, so Peter's going to answer the Fog of War thing, because I had no input on the name of the podcast.
Okay,
but
you go first and now answer the name thing at the end.
Yeah. So I think that for me, obviously I've really enjoyed being on the show, And when Peter asked me, immediately I was very, very receptive to the idea because, like I said, I love talking about esports. I love esports in general. I could talk about this all day. What's the only difference now is that we're recording it, right? And I'm talking to someone like Peter who I can have a back and forth with, and we can talk about the latest in esports news. So I really love that aspect. And like he said, I was also inspired by shows like Live on 3 or Unfiltered or Climbing the Ladder from Chanman B on YouTube. So definitely a lot of things that I enjoyed. And I just really love podcasts overall as well. I'm a huge fan of Double Toasted and Collider on YouTube. Those are both movie podcasts and talk shows. So just really, really happy to get into that world a little bit and even go out of my comfort zone a little bit. I've been on camera for events as interviewers, hosts, and commentators before, but never did something as long form as this, or as I guess even interactive in a lot of ways. So I really enjoyed it. Yes, we're trying to get as big as possible, just like Live on 3, and trying to spread the news of esports and have good discussions with people. But even then, I'm personally not. I'm not going to be really disappointed in myself if we never get to that point, or very, very bummed or anything like that. Personally, the joy of it all comes from the experience of just talking with Peter, interacting with the chat, just taking in all the amazing things that are happening in esports every single week. So in that instance, that's kind of how I feel about the show. I'm not sure if that quite answers your question, but
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, but that is kind of how I feel about it. And obviously, we're both working on things how to grow, exploring different platforms besides YouTube and Twitch, how we can better advertise the show, things like that. But like I said, it really does come down to just being really, really happy to talk about esports with someone who's as passionate about it as I am.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, Peter, how did you come up with the name?
So Live on 3, do you know the origins of that term?
Yeah, well, for me, it means, with Counter-Strike, I think of Live on 3, back in the day, I don't know if they still do this with the Counter-Strike tournaments, they would restart the round 3 times and then it would be live, but that's what I remember as the meaning.
Exactly. That's actually where it came from. That was his inspiration for calling the show Live on 3, actually.
Sweet.
It was a very Counter-Strike centric term. And so I wanted some kind of gaming term too that a lot of people kind of knew about, but that would make sense to the show. So I went through a lot of different names, and I had some people throw out some names for me too in my with my friends inside the Discord chat. And my friend William Dickinson, he was like, Fog of War. He just threw it out, and I was like, Fog of War. Okay, I actually kind of like it. And then sooner or later, I don't know if it was just coincidence or I just decided to come up for a meaning for it. I was like, well, Fog of War is kind of like, when you play a game, right? You slowly explore the map, right? And the Fog of War starts disappearing a little bit once you move into a new area. And so that's kind of like what we're doing, right? We're exploring esports. We're learning more about esports, and we're discovering a lot of different things about it that we didn't even know before if we didn't do the show. And we kind of wanted to share that discovery with other people. So that's kind of like the story of how the name came to be.
That's awesome. Sweet. Now, lastly, just share with the listeners where everybody can engage with you online and where to, catch your show and things like that.
I'll let you take this one first, Adam.
Are we doing shout-outs here as well?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So if you guys want to follow me, you can always follow me on Twitter at Adam_Baugh, Baugh with 2 M's. You can also obviously follow our Fog of War esports show on twitch.tv/Xenosking. Stay tuned to that every single Wednesday for all the esports news that you would want to know about. And of course, I just got to give a shout out to the people who matter a lot to me and all the supporters, everyone who's going to be listening to this podcast. You guys could be doing anything in the world, be anywhere, but you're here listening to us. And I'm really, really grateful that you find the time and your attention to give to myself, Spencer, and Peter, just hearing us out. Some random guys on the internet just are really passionate about esports. And of course, please follow Rutgers Esports on all forms of social media, just at Rutgers Esports. It'll be fine. They're doing big things, and I'm really, really proud of the new team. They're going to be a better team than anything that myself or the other founders could have ever done. So really look forward to that and stay tuned with them. Attend their events. Of course, shout out to Team Tespa for changing my life and being so supportive and being part of an even more great and amazing team that are doing amazing things. I'm beyond blessed and happy to be working with them. So follow them on all forms of social media at Team Tespa. And of course, shout out to the Esports 7 for being my first gig in esports and supporting a guy who just wanted to get more involved and explore the stories behind the players, much like Spencer, often don't get enough limelight because they are also interesting and have so many things to say. On top of that, so just follow them, Esports 7, on all forms of social media. Shout out to my boss, Drex, over there. But yeah, just thanks to everyone for watching and thanks to everyone that supports me, the show, Peter, Spencer, everyone. Shout out to the community. You guys are all amazing, and I'm more than happy, very, very proud to be part of this.
All right, so I guess it's my turn. Shout outs to Spencer. Thank you very much for having us on the show. It's been a really fun time. Shout outs to it's all good. You said at the end. I heard you, man. I heard you. Shout outs to Adam for sure, dude, for being my co-host on the show. It's been such great fun, and doing this interview with you too. It's like another episode of Baugh of War, but this time Spencer is the main host. Shout outs to RIT Esports, the whole esports community, and just everyone who's involved and tries to make this industry a better place. It's so amazing to see what everyone's kind of doing, and we're all doing it together. So it makes me really happy to see that. And shout outs to my family, my girlfriend for putting up with me and just everything. I know esports to a lot of people is still very new and very scary, but the fact that you have all these friends and family to support you and believe in you, it means a great deal to me. And so after that, what we got? We got if you want more content for Fog of War, follow me on twitch.tv/Xenosking, and that's also my Twitter and YouTube. Just look up Xenosking, that's with the X, so Xenos King. And yeah, follow Adam, follow Spencer. They both create great content, and I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with next.
Awesome.
Before we get to you, Spencer, I just want to add in a few shout outs just because I just realized I forgot some things. Of course, I want to give a massive shout out, or I should rather say, if you want to follow more of the podcasts I do, just look up the Long Run podcast on YouTube, where I talk about movies with some of my favorite people in the world, my friends. A bit different from what you would get from the Esports podcast, but it's a lot of fun. And of course, you can check out my YouTube channel. Just look up my name, Adam Baugh, on YouTube. And you'll see a lot of the interviews that I did for Esports 7 at various esports events like Evolution or E-League or ESL 1. And of course, shout outs to Spencer for bringing us on for the show. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed talking to you guys and being able to express ourselves and talk about the current state of esports and where things are going. And of course, I want to give a massive shout out to all of my family in the Philippines who might not know too much about esports, even though it is growing there. But their unconditional support of me really does mean a lot. And I promise I'll be home soon.
Awesome. Well, you guys have been tremendous guests. I enjoyed my talking to you guys on Fog of War, and I enjoyed this time we shared tonight too. And I just really love the passion and ambition you guys have to push the scene forward. And what I love the most, I think, about what you guys are doing is never once did you mention, you're doing this for money or for accolades or for notoriety. Like, that's what I love the most, is you guys are just doing this for the love of the industry, and you want to make an impact however way you can. And I really think that's really inspiring to hear, because in a world where so much of it is about money and everyone getting their own, there's enough to go around. And if you're doing what you love, I truly believe that, the financial situation will follow you. If you're doing what you love, you're going to be able to make ends meet somehow, some way, if you just follow your heart and do what you love. And that's what really hits me the most about what you guys are doing. So I really appreciate you guys and what you're doing and your story and your history, and the content that you guys create is super awesome. And I think I would love to continue to keep consuming what you guys produce as well. And I really appreciate you guys coming on the show and having me on your show. It's been super fun, and I'm sure we will do some more fun stuff in the future. I think that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I was about to say, so Spencer, when's part 2, dude? I'm ready. I know Peter's
Yeah,
ready.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun. So basically everything that you said, same to you, man. I really
Awesome.
appreciate all your work and all the things that all the very, very kind and nice words that you've said about us as well.
Yeah, anytime you want to be on the show, just hit us up. We'll be glad to have you back.
Awesome. Likewise, we'll have to pick some cool, unique topics that are maybe buzzworthy that is going on, and get some online traction. Maybe get like a viral video going, and we'll just explode, and we'll be like internet famous.
Yeah, maybe one day, man.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again. And I just want to remind everyone that if this goes as planned, this show is just the beginning. Hey guys, real quick before you go, I just want to say thanks for listening and supporting the show. It really means a lot to me that you like it, and I hope that if you found some value from this podcast, that you'll share it on Twitter or on Instagram or Facebook, anywhere that you have a social media presence. I would love it if you would just share it with 3 to 4 people that might be interested in it. It would absolutely mean the world to me. It would help me get my name out there, help me get the podcast out there. I do this solely for the love of esports and for the love of getting to know people and hearing the stories of esports that I think are so awesome. So please, if you got value from this, if you enjoyed it, please share it with someone who you think might like it. And with that, I will see you next time. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. 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 I really appreciate